Welcome back to 365 Unlimited. We are back with another episode, just Gannon and myself. We're both settled into the new way of life, if that's what you want to call it. More or less reality. Um, Gannon is down in Florida. He has landed in Florida for the foreseeable future to do his grad work courses and be a part of the is it Kaiser University, correct? Or
Yeah, I'm a grad assistant for Kaiser University. It's a NAI team baseball. We're in the Sun Conference. We're in West Palm Beach, about an hour north of Miami. So yeah, I've been settled here for a couple weeks now. I've been going in the office, meeting new players. School year starts this coming week when this episode gets dropped. So starting grad school, had orientation for that. It was kind of weird, surreal feeling, but so it's just a lot of new stuff. Everything is brand new. Scenery, meeting people. There's not a whole lot that I knew or was familiar with when I first got down here, but in 2 weeks, it's been a very good transition. And this will kind of be the layout that you'll see on the recordings now. It's another bedroom shot. Obviously, we like to have better images, but it's what happens when you're living and grinding and still being a college student. And but this will do good. I think the brightening and the lighting's better than I think what I had in Missouri, I think from before, if people remember back to that. But a little side note on that. But yeah, we're down here and Bryce is just getting going with his school year.
yeah, so I mean, it's one of those things where I didn't want to say it's University of Kaiser, Kaiser
Yeah, no, you're
University.
good.
So
I could just throw the little ad lib in for a minute and
yeah, so best of luck with Gannon and all the great things that he has coming. But yeah, I just started school teaching at Oregon High School in Illinois, about a 45-minute drive from my hometown, Freeport, Illinois, and coaching football. We just got our first W varsity win um, this past Friday. Uh, very exciting. Very excited to continue to roll with this season as football is here. So speaking of football, that's kind of going to be what we want to talk about to you guys today. Just talk about the upcoming NFL season. Talk about some teams that we've been looking forward to watching this season, and all the success that they can bring to the field. Maybe a few players that, based on some moves and or drafts, uh, and or players that were drafted this season, that will change the landscape of the NFL. Before we dive into all of that, check out our sponsors: Driftless Quality Wear, Bocker Auto Group, Not Vintage, which you can use the code 365U at the checkout for 10% off. Gannon representing the Tiger Woods t-shirt, graphic tee. It's beautiful, great design, everything you want in a graphic tee. Also, check out King's Restoration in Freeport, Illinois, ran by Jordan Ludeking. And Next Home First Class, Kimberly Taylor, the realtor here in Freeport and the surrounding areas within our hometown of the 815. She does incredible work to provide homes for people in our community and keep everyone finding their dream home. So check all those sponsors out. We are thankful, we are blessed, and we greatly appreciate all that they have done for us over the course of this podcast. All right, Gannon, let's just kind of dive right into some NFL things.
yeah.
What do you think in Green Bay this season?
Oh yeah, we could dive right into it. We might as well get the Packers and the Cowboys just a little
Yeah.
real quick. It's kind of an icebreaker. It's just, getting us back in the recording mood, the NFL mood. But no, man, it's the best time of the year. Fantasy football drafts upon us, that type of the year. It's a good camaraderie. You get back with your boys, get playing your leagues. No matter really what happens, you can just keep in contact. It's just a great time of the year. The fall season with college and the NFL season, coming in full swing, college in the next week, and then the NFL in 2 weeks. It's a fun time. But with the Packers, man, it's a transition. It's a whole new era. We got Jay Love, Jordan Love,
Mm-hmm.
that at the helm running our team, man. It's a rejuvenation. It's sad that the era with Aaron Rodgers and all that has come to an end, but it's also kind of a new, clear lens, I think, to look through. It's a young guy who's got uber athleticism, a big arm. Now we'll just have to see, can he, in year 4 now in the system with Matt LaFleur and and company, there should be leaps and strides. I think there should be success, but there's also going to be a learning curve. It's still your first year with the guy, so I think you got to kind of keep that in the back of your mind here. But there's also a lot of veterans and playmakers, I think, that we have around him on the offensive side with the run game. Aaron Jones, AJ Dillon. We have a veteran offensive line. along with some young wide receivers that I think are going to be playmakers for Jordan Love. And then on the defensive side, we got guys that have been there, mid plays. The defense the second half of the year last year really kept us and got us into the playoff contention, even though we couldn't end it up getting into the wild card by the end. But when we're healthy and on the field, especially with Rashawn Gary back at 100%, with Lucas Van Ness, our first round pick, Kenny Clark, that's an interior defensive line with Devondre Campbell and Quay Walker, Devontae Wyatt, two Georgia guys in their second year. I'm really looking for big things out of these two. And then you got obviously Jair Alexander, which is top three, I think, cornerback in the league right now. Also with his swagger and confidence, there is stuff to be excited for. There really is. You know, in the NFC North, you got Kirk Cousins running another team. That's kind of, I feel like, caps you a little bit, having Kirk Cousins be your captain of the team. The Bears is a lot of new faces. There's a lot of intriguing things for the Bears. I know it's something we might get into on this discussion a little bit, but people of ours, friends of ours, and Bears friends, there is a lot to be excited for there. It's just going to come down. You know what Justin Fields has with his escapability and his legs. It's just going to be, can he consistently throw the ball and get it to his weapons at the end of the day? But Ryan Poles has done the groundwork so far to start, riding the ship, I'd say, in Chicago. So there's a lot of cool things about it. I'm really excited to see Jordan Love play. It's a cool time. I know he's excited. There's been a lot of camaraderie with the guys in the locker room this training camp of just really supporting him regardless of what he's going through, this, that, and just, he's their guy. He's the QB1, and there's been a lot of warm receptions. Obviously, that's going to change when the season gets going, but I think with LaFleur and their offensive play calling, I think they can really set some stuff up for success if we run the ball at a good clip and really establish the play clock, in my opinion. It's going to be growing pains. There's going to be struggles. We might not make the playoffs. We might, try to get 500. I don't know what it is. We might win 10 games and be in the wild card hunt or trying to get the NFC title come the end of, December, January time. I don't really know, but it's going to be something new to watch, and it'll be interesting to see a new era.
Yeah, I mean, first off, I think the NFC North is it's a division where
I didn't even talk about the Lions.
there's so many question marks for every single team in that division, but there's so many positives.
There's so much talent, dude. There's so much talent.
Those teams, they have bright spots, but then they have negative spots, and you could say that for any division in general, obviously. But I do think within the North right now there are so many question marks as to, like, not necessarily who's going to come out on top, but who's going to be your second, your third, your middle of the road teams. Because based on, like, a team like Chicago, like, we're wondering what Justin Fields can bring as a passer, but ultimately at the same time, based off Chicago's strength of schedule, you're looking at and you're like, wow, that team could possibly win 8 to 9 games. And that could be a team who finishes second, third in your division. So if you have your top two teams win enough games to win the division, get a playoff spot, and then you got Chicago winning 8 or 9 games, you never know what the course of the NFC is going to look like throughout the year. That could end up being a wild card. Somehow, some way it could be. But as far as Green Bay goes, I agree. For the most part, I do think there are a lot of positives with this team. Obviously, I want to see Jordan Love get a full slate of games and see what he can do with it before I put any judgment on him. I don't think we know what we have in Jordan Love as a quarterback, not necessarily even just a starting quarterback.
The sample size is so small. It's been just a couple filling games here or there. This is a consistently, going through the camp, like you said, he's been the guy now since when the trade happened back in March, so all through OTAs, mini camp, training camp, he's the guy now. What difference does that make? It's not kind of, I think, the nervousness of, oh, you're the backup just getting slid in for one game. You are the guy now, and you have that realization. So it's either going to make him or break him, like you said. You're going to figure it out over these 17 games.
Well, and I think Green Bay did the best thing they could for a young quarterback this offseason, drafting 2 stud tight ends, Luke Musgrave, Tucker Kraft, 2 guys that can grow into your system. They're your safety blankets. They're your guys that are going to run your intermediate routes. And if Love can't find anyone, he's got Aaron Jones in the flat. He's got Kraft. He's got Musgrave, who they're talking about is one of the fastest players on the offense. Yeah. So they've done everything the right way to surround him with people that are going to make him successful as a quarterback. I think you look at the young trio now in receivers, you could say, in Romeo Doubs, Christian Watson. I probably should have named first. Kid's going to be a stud this year. Yeah. Buy all the stock you can in Christian Watson. He is going to boom this season. On top of that, you got the new rookie from Michigan State, correct? Jaden
Yep.
Reed. He's from Michigan
Yep.
State. Bringing in a receiver like that, another fast guy. Uh, I'm excited to see what Green Bay can bring to the table offensively and defensively as well. Uh, we'll see what we get on that side of the ball. But the North is a question mark, man. I'm interested to see how it plays out. But let's kind of transition into the Cowboys because I want to hear your perspective on some things Cowboys after I
Yeah.
kind of give you my rundown. Uh, as far as the offseason goes with Dallas so far, which is practically over, I don't think there's going to be a flurry of many more moves for Dallas to come in the coming days, weeks, obviously, outside of roster cut downs to 53 and maybe you get lucky and there's a trade or a free agent signing for a veteran linebacker, veteran running back, which I would personally like to see because I think those are our weaker positions, I would say, depth wise, especially after the injury to DeMarvion Overshown, a linebacker from Texas we drafted in the third round. To kind of bring in a depth piece to offset that would be helpful. And the situation with Pollard coming back from injury, losing Zeke to New England, those are the two positions I'm just a little concerned about. Offensive line, we get Zach Martin back. He's been in camp the last couple days, week, and we know what we got in him. But I will say I am proud of the way that Dallas came into this offseason and actually were pretty aggressive compared to past years. And it didn't come in free agency. But bringing your guys back, bringing Van Der Esch back, bringing Donovan Wilson, who's probably arguably one of the most underrated safeties in the league right now. Not necessarily even just coverage wise, but that dude can lay the boom when it comes to making a tackle. So to bring him back and then re-sign Malik Hooker, so you got your trio of safeties back. Van Der Esch, you bring Pollard back on the tag, and then you make a trade for Brandon Cooks. And yes, everyone wants to talk about his age. Let me tell you, though, he's been in the league for what feels like forever, but the dude isn't that old. He's not that old.
No.
And then on top of that, making the trade for Stephon Gilmore to pair alongside Diggs. I love that. And yes, those are two veteran guys. So yes, you're sitting there wondering like, okay, these guys are a little bit older. Are they really going to bring the juice that they've had throughout their careers? But in the same sentence, you realize these guys have been studs their whole career. So they're bringing that veteran presence to a team, especially defensively for the Gilmore situation. The more guys we get like that, it's going to elevate this defense to continue to rise to the top where they're already at. I would say right now, Dallas-wise, I'm expecting a very good season. Now, I think our only weakness will come down to be what does the play calling look like with McCarthy calling the offense? How does Dak handle adversity if interceptions start to come? And I ultimately think our defense will be able to limit the scoring from opposing offenses. So I do think it will be a successful year. But what's your perspective? Certainly you could talk a little bit about the McCarthy stuff coming to Dallas and finally being the play caller to do what he did in Green Bay for a long time.
Yeah. I mean, there was a lot of success there because, you obviously won us a championship. Then by the end, Aaron Rodgers couldn't even stand him and I think was pretty much pulling off the play calling that McCarthy had and was, I think, sabotaging some games towards the end of that, 27? I think 17 season when the Packers weren't good. I remember Rodgers threw a fourth down and short against the Seahawks to extend the game, and he threw it at the running back's legs. And it was just, I think it was all because they were just fed up with the McCarthy play calling. But it's something that has worked. I think regardless, it's not Kellen Moore's play calling. It's not what Kellen Moore wants to do. And I think with him being gone now, this is just really massive for Dallas and their offense more specifically because it's been some stuff that I've heard and read. It's just been in the past, it's whatever Kellen wanted to run and whatever he felt like would fit would, really be successful for them, which is cool. You want that input, but you got to be what puts your players in the best situations, not what you think is putting them in the best situation. I think that's kind of been the biggest thing. It's not that Kellen didn't know his X and O's and couldn't call a good offense, but it was his offense at the end of the day. And he's not the one out there making the plays and doing the stuff. It's just going to come down to also then the whole shift of the team with the Cowboys. They're in the contention. They have big names. They have people, that have been successful over the years. It's the same type of vibe, I'd say, over the Cowboys over the last 4 to 5, even 10 years at different times. But what's going to make this team different? What's going to make this Cowboys team different? What's going to be some statement wins for them? What are
Mhm.
some questions that Dak's going to answer to go on the road, win some big division games, go into Philadelphia, shut Philadelphia up? You just those are defining moments that the Cowboys have struggled to have, even winning 11 to 12 games in some of these seasons. Having very good regular season success, but against good teams and some big games, it really just didn't always pan out for them. So what's going to be
Yeah.
different to kind of get this Cowboys team led by Dak Prescott with other young, phenomenal talent around them? What's going to be that to get them over the hump, to go win the NFC East, go be a high seed, and go make a playoff run, not just win 11 games and maybe get in the division or try in the wild card behind the Eagles and then be a first round exit or a second round. What's going to be something different that you remember about the 2023 Cowboys? And I think that's going to be the biggest question that's going to be answered, and that's over the course of the season. We don't have the answers for that right now.
Yeah. I mean, ultimately, I would say I'm
And do
very
you agree
excited.
though with that, with Kellen Moore and the offense, just a transition, regardless of what happens here with McCarthy, just the good it
Yeah,
is, the
yeah,
good it's
no,
going to bring?
no, it's a fantastic thing, and I wanted it to happen. I think it was something that couldn't have happened mid-season. It was one of those things that you like. It sucked because I truly believe this is my true thought process behind it. I think after that Green Bay game last year, when Green Bay came back and beat us, that was the end for Kellen Moore, in my opinion. That was the end of a situation where, yes, we started giving up points, and that was a defensive loss near the end of the game. But Mike wanted that game. And I've never seen out of any game Mike's been a part of, which you get it, it's his old team. He wants to win. But I've never seen Mike that fired up, throwing
Yeah.
stuff on the sideline. And you could tell he had it with the way the offense was being called. And I just think the engagement of McCarthy, he's all in. It's all in or nothing this
Yeah.
year for him. And I'm not going to sit here and say that he'll be fired if the offense doesn't perform, because truth be told, Mike McCarthy has had success with the Dallas Cowboys record-wise, and we can't argue it.
Yeah.
He's already proven to be a more successful coach than Jason Garrett. And that's not saying a whole lot. I get it. It's not saying a whole lot. But at the end of the day, I'm excited for Mike to be the guy who does it, because I don't have to sit there and complain between OC, head coach, and then you got to read between the lines. Well, who's really calling it? What's really going on? What's Mike's input here? Now we know. We know Mike McCarthy is calling the plays. It's between him and Dak Prescott with minimal input from Brian Schottenheimer. But at the same time, I'm just eager to see the differences in play calling, which I've already seen some of it in preseason with route combinations.
Yeah.
The fact that spacing is not one hell of an issue, because it was with Kellen, and we've already seen some of it in the preseason with the Chargers. When you're running verts on the side and you got two guys 5 yards off the sticks that are sitting there spread out, like you're creating problems for your offense when you're taking your ball players out of the play. And especially in a third and short situation where you run two guys off the sticks, send them on fade routes or deep post routes, and they're 30 yards downfield, and you got two options with no safety blanket to go to. That's frustrating. And
Yeah.
that's the type of stuff we saw with Kellen Moore near the end of his tenure in Dallas. Give me all my options. Leave my guys in the general vicinity with solid spacing, and we can minimize the problems that we have in our offense by putting the ball in the hands of our best athletes, our best players. So that's what I'm most looking forward to, Dallas wise. Is just seeing the outcomes with that. But I want to transition and kind of dive into a little bit of just landscape things across the
Yeah.
NFL. Let's do two teams, all right? So are there two teams right now outside of our Cowboys, our Packers? Are there two teams in the NFL that kind of flying under the radar, or teams that have been good but not great? Are there two teams that you're looking at and you're
Yeah.
like, okay, I see some success there. I see what could be possible. Now lay it on me.
Yeah, I'll go NFC, or I think they're both AFC. They're in the same division, the AFC South. One of them's not been the radar. They had a big comeback win last year in the postseason with the Chargers debacle. Is the Jacksonville Jaguars. I think I took Calvin Ridley in one of my fantasy drafts. I think that sparked interest also, and I picked up Trevor Lawrence and was playing him through some of my quarterback woes last year, there is a lot of growth there, and it's with Doug Peterson leading the way, who did the same thing with the Philadelphia Eagles. I'm not comparing them, saying he's going to take them and win the Super Bowl with these guys, but he's got a young quarterback that can run. They have great weapons around. They have a great run game, and they have momentum from last year. They have a taste of success. They have a postseason win. They went on the road. They didn't go on the road. They were the division winners last year, but just that type of stuff. I'm really interested to see Trevor Lawrence progression because came into the league, the generational type talent, and then right away it wasn't everything. Everything wasn't flowers and roses right away. But now
Mhm.
he's on this path of going back this way, and I think it's really cool. I think that's a team. Calvin Ridley's a dog, like an absolute dog that's got a lot of stuff that he has worked through and overcome. People checked out his story with all the time being off, the mental health stuff he's gone through. There's a very good article on the Players Tribune to go check it out. If you have not read that, this man's ready to ball, and he's ready to ball with a really good quarterback in Trevor Lawrence. That's one of my teams. And then the other one is the Houston Texans. I don't know how much noise they're going to make for the playoff contention, but I think with C.J. Stroud as a rookie, John Mechie coming back off of his cancer diagnosis and then overcame that, Nico Collins, they have Tamiko Ryans as their new head coach. They got a young defense. There's a lot of vibes there. I just like what the vibe is around Houston and their camps, the stuff I've seen on social media. Just
Don't
saw that.
forget my boy Tank Dell.
Oh
Don't
yeah,
forget
Tank
my
Dell.
boy Tank
And then they
Dell.
also got Dalton Schultz. They got over from the Cowboys. These are just pieces, and C.J. Stroud could throw the crap out of the ball. I really thought C.J. Stroud. Obviously, this class was loaded. That's another kind of point I want to talk about was AR, Anthony Richardson with the Colts, Bryce Young with the Panthers, and C.J. Stroud. You got three guys from day one are going to be the dude at these places, and
Yep.
who's going to take over at all different types of levels. With Bryce Young, some people thought was the one, some people thought Stroud was, and then you got Anthony Richardson, who you've never seen physically that type of a player play the quarterback position. So those type of things are cool, but I'm really interested with CJ Stroud. I think he really has a chance to be great with his throwing ability and the way that Houston, it's a complete rebuild, and I think they're doing it the right direction there.
Yeah, I you stole one of my teams. I was going to talk about the Houston Texans.
Yeah.
So I'll come up with a team on the spot that I'm thinking about. But initially, the first team for me is the Detroit Lions.
Yeah.
It's a team in the North. Gannon's very familiar with, but we've seen them trend upwards each and every single year. And yes, there's still some question marks. There's still some games where they can't win the close game. Now, is that going to be a coaching issue with Dan Campbell? That's a whole different discussion we can get into mid-season when we start to see what they're doing. Uh, but I love what they have there, and I'm 6 games later. I'm excited to see what Jameson Williams can bring. We haven't truly got to see who he is, what he can be in the NFL. Uh, but I love that team in general. I think there's so much talent there, and I'm not a Jared Goff hater. I truly think Jared Goff is a guy who can help you win football games, and I don't think he's a system quarterback like everyone kind of claimed him to be when he was with the Rams under McVay and making it to the Super Bowl and all of that. I love what Goff can bring to the table. Let's say that. I think there's a lot of talent in that team. I think they can be successful. Now, I could end up seeing them being the winners of the North, and I think
I
it's a
can see all four teams in a
oh
scenario.
yeah, well yeah. At this
I
moment
mean,
in time,
it's really anybody's division, bro. Like,
yeah. But I will say one of my favorite moves that they made all off season, which is probably similar for a lot of people with the Lions, is bringing in Jahmyr Gibbs from Bama, uh, being a running back, kind of hybrid, kind of receiver like slot guy. He can do a lot of things for that football team. And the signing of David Montgomery, so you got your mixture of your power back, your shifty back. I'm loving that
I gotta
whole
shout out
move
the
for
two
them.
the two Iowa guys who they drafted, Sam Laporta at tight end and
And
Jack
Campbell,
Campbell
yeah,
at middle linebacker, who's been turning heads, an absolute
yeah.
unit. I mean, so these guys they're drafting well also while also bringing in these free agents. This has been a shift of getting high end talent in the draft, and they've done that over these years. Now they've hit on people, they've
Yeah.
hit on their own homegrown talent.
No, I agree wholeheartedly. So that I would say that's my number one team where I'm looking at and like raising
Yeah.
some eyebrows a little bit. Like this team could be a solid football team. They can win some ball games and possibly escape with a division title. But we will see. Time will tell with that one, and I'm sure we'll revisit that. But let's see. My other team, since you stole my Texans, I want to sit back and say the New England Patriots. Kind of an interesting team for me because obviously there are some question marks at that quarterback position. Can Mac Jones kind of return to who he was and what he kind of became in that system under Belichick, his rookie season, where he came out and kind of turned some heads, surprised some people, and then we start to see some games where Bailey Zappi's coming in and playing for him, and the injuries, and you're like, well, is Mac Jones the New England Patriots starting quarterback, or are they still not figured that out? And that's something where I look at and I'm like, all right, well, can he be the guy? I think he can, and I think he does fit that system to a point where I'm like, I know that he has the arm strength. I know that he has the ability to be accurate. And I know that there's some guys around him that can make him successful. Uh, we got Jacoby Myers.
Yep.
They signed Juju Smith-Schuster.
Jacoby Myers, he's on the Raiders now.
He did go to the Raiders. Man, I am rusty. It's been a couple weeks since we sat down and recorded. Jacoby Myers went to the Raiders. We got
Devontae Parker's still out there.
okay. And then obviously they bring in my guy Zeke. They bring in my guy Zeke to pair with Ramondre Stevenson. I love that move, and it's not even necessarily about what Zeke can still bring to the table. It's the physical capabilities that he possesses. If he's healthy, him and Ramondre is a great tandem, and it helps. It benefits Ramondre. It limits the wear and tear on the team, where you don't have to have a running back that is going between the trenches, taking hits, 3 downs, 3 downs, 3 downs every possession. But one of my most intriguing moves that the Patriots made this offseason in the draft was taking probably what will end up being one of the steals of the draft, DB Christian Gonzalez, who nobody expected to slide to where he did, and being able to get that sort of talent where they did, and upgrade the back end of their defense. Awesome. I love the move the day it happened, and I probably will love the move even more when I get to see him out on the field. And I could honestly, it's weird, but like I could see that being like a guy like I get his jersey. He's just a fascinating athlete, and the way he plays football is fun to watch. But they also signed Mike Gesicki.
Yeah, I
So
forgot
that
about that.
I'm sitting here looking up some of the roster moves that they made because I'm curious. They've talked a lot about the moves that this team made, but they've made a flurry of moves that like have flown under the radar. Like they're not massive names, but they're guys that can help you win football games. Uh, who was the guy I was just looking at in the draft? I got somebody in the draft. Ooh. Well, they drafted Antonio Mafi, so the lineman. When I was listening to a bunch of preview shows for the draft, this offseason Cowboys stuff, Mafi was a name that was brought up where Dallas was considering trying to grab that guard, to be able to have him and slot him in within the coming years. Kind of a transitional guy, not necessarily a guy that can play immediately, but that's kind of what I mean about this Patriots team making these moves that fly under the radar, that aren't massive names, but they're guys that can help you win games. So I would say my two teams, Patriots, Lions, excited to see what they both can bring to the table. It's intriguing upcoming seasons for the both of them, but time will tell. What else you want to kind of dive into on this game?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest storyline from the offseason is obviously Aaron Rodgers going to the New York Jets. I mean, that's obviously the biggest talk of the news. And with the Hard Knocks, I haven't watched, I think, all the episodes that have been out, but I've watched a little bit of the content, and it's just something I wanted to touch on a little bit because, they're touch on them in the division, kind of just, wrap that up with this final main topic, I think, for this episode, and just the sheer talent of the AFC East. I mean, it is insane what the quarterback play with
Hmm.
Tua being your third best quarterback in the division. I mean, there's not a lot of places you would slide Tua into a division and he'd be the third quarterback. So it's going to be interesting to see. There's two parts of this with the division. I think it's going to be a really major bounce back year for the Buffalo Bills. Not saying that they've had bad years, they've just haven't really been able to finish at the end, and kind of stuff's blown up in their face a little bit. But not having them be the lead of the division, all the talk about Aaron Rodgers, I think is kind of going to be good for Josh Allen and those guys over there to be a little bit of a recheck, so to speak, and kind of be good to go on that aspect. But then with Aaron Rodgers and the Jets, I think it's going to be they're going to win football games. They're going to score points. Like
Most
we know
definitely.
that, but how much to what extent will be, and I think that's going to be an interesting part to see because there's going to be learning curves, there's going to be growing pains because it's hard to bring in these many grown men at this short of a time and compete for a championship that first year of it. It's just really hard, but it'll be interesting to see how they do it. They got a lot of veteran guys. They got a lot of weapons on offense. A lot of weapons. He's got a security blankets with Randall Cobb and Alan Lazard as kind of the Packers guys, the guys that he's comfortable with, that he can turn his head away and still throw the ball, and they're going to be there. And then you got Garrett Wilson, who's coming into the his own. I mean, you got those type of talent just right there, and you got McCole Hardman that nobody's talking about. And I think that's going to be a really big piece of the offense is McCole Hardman and the speed threat with Aaron Rodgers. But at the end of the day, it will be interesting to see because there's going to be those growing pains, those types of stuff. And it'll be interesting to see how Rodgers handles those types of things once they get into the season because you can handle this differently through training camp. It's learning experience, teaching this and that. But when they have some of these pains on the field, he hasn't been a guy to adjust with some of these younger guys, and he's starting to do more stuff now with this younger guys in the core that with the Jets. But there's been growing pains with younger wide receivers and just in new systems and new stuff in the past years in Green Bay. So it'd be really interesting to see that when it comes game time, how much he's really put into this. Not saying he hasn't put in enough that it won't work, but will this be enough and something different, or will it be a completely new, different Aaron Rodgers now that he's in a new area? But it will be interesting to see. What's your thoughts on the Jets?
Yeah, no, the Jets are going to be a successful football team.
Yeah, it's just to what extent.
Yeah, and it's and we may see a transitional period where there's a little bit of struggle, maybe I should would be the right word to say. Just gathering chemistry, and yes, you've had the whole offseason program. Rodgers has been there for all of it. He's gotten to been implemented in the offense. He's soaked up everything preseason. All of that he's been a part of. So the chemistry problem shouldn't necessarily consist uh, exist. But once we get to the regular season, obviously we know it's a whole different ball game when it comes to playing football games. There's not that much of a gap between a lot of teams across the NFL. There's talent everywhere. So ultimately, the Jets are going to be a successful football team with Rodgers as their quarterback. Garrett Wilson, Alan Lazard, Cobb, McCole Hardman, bringing in Dalvin Cook to go alongside Brees Hall. The names are endless. You got arguably could be the best corner in the NFL by the end of the season in Sauce Gardner, whose name is already up within the top five for damn sure. A lockdown DB. They got talent on this team. I do love their coach. I love Robert
Yeah.
Sala, defensive mind.
Seems like a great dude to play for. Just an absolute player's coach, a young
Hmm.
transition with the guys that stepped right into the coaching role and just he's
But
he's
yeah,
gonna be there for a long time.
that division is going to be a monster with the
And I
Bills.
just think too the learning curve of Zach Wilson and all of this
Yeah,
with Aaron
massive.
Rodgers, it is so huge because Rodgers could be there for even 3-4 years and still have Wilson be able to come back and
Yeah.
extend him and do this type of stuff. And if they win, it, you're really going to see if Zach Wilson is worth anything because at some
Mm-hmm.
point he will get a shot. It could be week 2. I mean, Rodgers could go down. You don't know with this team, but it's nice to have that security blanket with him still being able to step in. And if he figures out some of his tendencies and his stuff, some of his reads, he can still be a good quarterback in this league. So I
Mm-hmm.
think that's another. There's so many dynamics with this Jets organization.
I agree. And another team I kind of want to talk about is the Baltimore Ravens. I think they went out and made moves for Lamar Jackson after bringing him and giving him that damn contract. Shout out to y'all Ravens for giving him the contract. He deserves it. One of the best across the league. But Lamar has his best wide receiver core. We had our fantasy draft a couple days ago, and to be able to sit and analyze the situation, like I drafted Lamar in my fantasy team this year, and while sitting thinking about the decision to do so, he has his best wide receiver core he's ever had in his career as a Raven. Obviously, Rashad Bateman needs to be healthy, but drafting Zay Flowers, dude is a freak athlete. He has movement and speed and quickness and lateral cuts and the ability to get open, route running. He has all of it. Now, that's a guy Lamar hasn't had. Lamar hasn't necessarily had a guy who could be a burner, who can get open quick in the short game, the deep game, all of it. And then obviously you bring a guy in like Odell. Obviously, Odell being out for a year, we don't know what we can expect with a guy like him. The talent always been there for Odell. Now, if he can limit injuries, I'm sure he can be a great fit in this system. And then obviously the best receiver that Lamar's had his whole career is his boy Mark Andrews. Receiver, tight end, whatever you want to call him, he's there. So you got Andrews, Odell, Zay Flowers, Bateman, and they also made an under the radar signing in Nelson Aguilar.
Yeah.
Nelson Aguilar's had some success. Now that's a team that I'm looking forward to watching. Being in the same division with the Bengals, with a team like the Browns, Watson, revenge year, coming back and balling, and then your Steelers. Kenny Pickett has done everything in the preseason, the offseason to show
year 2 with him could be fun to watch. There's a lot of fun divisions.
There is, and so that's a division that I'm looking forward to seeing unfold. Obviously, I think when you look at the AFC South, you're looking at the Jags, the Colts, the Titans, the Texans. I think that's your lower level division where you're like, okay, the Jags are going to run away with that division, and in my head, they probably will. Then you're looking at your AFC West, your Raiders, your Chiefs, your Chargers, your Broncos. That's another one that's iffy because we're looking at a situation where the Chargers, they got an offense. Drafted Quentin Johnston from TCU, who will be a dog to go alongside. He's Mike Will 2.0. So you got Mike Will, Quentin Johnston, Keenan Allen.
Yeah.
There's talent there. Eckler, Herbert. There's talent. Chargers, Broncos. Are they going to come back and have a good year with Sean Payton? Time will tell, but that's another team where you can't count out.
No.
Chiefs. The Chiefs are going to win that division. They're going to win the division. Raiders, another team where you're like, okay. I don't think they're going to give many teams a fight with Jimmy G at quarterback, but there's talent there. And it's another team to keep an eye on. But these divisions across the NFL, they're not that far apart. I think ultimately within this preview, kind of like my last thoughts, I guess you could say, is I don't think right now, outside of maybe 3 to 4 divisions total across the NFC and AFC, we have a clue who's going to come away with it. There's not that much of a gap between these teams this year, and you started to see a little bit of it last year. And it's funny, we've had these conversations, Gannon, where where teams like the Jets, the Jags, even the Texans, Panthers, like we got to see them good throughout our early years of life with Deshaun Watson being a Texan and Panthers having Cam Newton, the years of that. But like it's been different to watch the teams that we watched growing up be terrible, and now you're starting to see the Jets, the Jags, those figure it out. Miami, the Dolphins were never necessarily something special growing up for us. A team like the Titans, all of these teams are starting to figure it out. Mm-hmm. So I guess if you're sitting here listening to this, understand what I mean by there's not that much of a gap between teams, is there's so much talent in each division on each team that there's not many teams that are going to run away with it. And the NFC is way weaker than the AFC. The AFC is stacked. So anyone can run away with the NFC this year. But you have any closing thoughts? I think this is a good initial preview where we talk about our favorite teams, give you our 2 dark horse teams, and kind of give you a general rundown of what to expect with teams who made some moves like the Jets, like the Ravens, and ultimately just give you guys a little insight as to what to expect within these divisions and understand that there's a lot of talent in the NFL. So you got anything?
Oh no, I just think it's gonna be. I think it's this new wave. There's new quarterbacks. There's new rookie guys starting. There's new teams with new weapons. It's fun because it's not the same old teams like you're saying with these teams like the Jets, the Jags, Dolphins. All these teams were good before, but now they're good. It's a rejuvenation. It's a fun part as a fan to
Yeah.
not only the Packers lens, but just as an NFL and a sports fan, you have new talent. You have these new playmakers. You got new teams, new cities, new stars that are coming into these different places. Like we have never seen anything close to what Anthony Richardson possesses physically. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not saying you're going to see the best football player ever. You don't know that. But the only thing that's been close physically has been Cam Newton. And that's close. That's not even the same athleticism or the same conversation. Throwing the ball, shiftiness, and running. We're talking just size and strength when I'm talking Cam Newton and
Yeah.
Anthony Richardson. That's the only two similarities between those guys. But I think it's going to be very fun. There's going to be new fan bases. There's new people. There's with these young guys. It just sparks interest with maybe organizations that weren't as good before, but that are now. You can get new fans in here of these quarterbacks that become fans of your organization, and it just builds your overall outlook and PR of your teams. But no, it's fun, man. It's the same idea with the Packers, though. It's a new look. It's a new rejuvenation of Jordan Love. It's a new era. It's something new to look forward to. It's not the same old stuff regardless if it's good or bad. Same old is not good ever in my eyes, no matter whatever it is that you do in your life. So I
Yeah.
think that's kind of the biggest thing. And I'm excited, man. Football's back. It's the best time of the year.
I'm with it. I agree 100%, and I think you put it best in your cap off right there is understanding there's a lot of rejuvenation with this season. There's a lot of fresh faces. Obviously, we get implementation of players out of the draft every single season, but a lot of players shifting gears to new teams, coaching,
Mm-hmm.
moving parts, uh, and it is fascinating. Three rookie quarterbacks that'll be starting QBs this season. Another thing to keep
Yeah.
an eye on. There's so many storylines within this upcoming season, but we are close. We are close. The NFL season is here. Preseason's about wrapping up. College football is coming. All of it. So I appreciate you guys tapping in for this one. We will most definitely give you a more in-depth, well-rounded division by division preview once the season gets going. But we just wanted to get this out and let you guys know that football is back, and we are very excited to continue to talk about it and learn about it and hear some great things with all these teams this season. But we appreciate you guys, and we will catch you soon.